Get out of my lobby! This place isn't for your kind. The words sliced through the polished marble air of Seattle's Horizon Grand Hotel like a blade designed to cut without leaving evidence. Manager Grant Hollis doesn't whisper it. He announces it, chin high, voice carrying across the reception area like he's reading from an employee handbook. The woman standing before him wears a plain black tee and worn jeans. Her name is Monica Lane, and she came here for one simple thing, to check into the penthouse suite she reserved 2 weeks ago. Instead, she's being treated like a crime in progress. If this story makes you think about dignity, power, and the moment everything changes, stay with me until the very end. Like this video and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Monica's story travels. The lobby of the Horizon Grand Hotel had been designed to intimidate. 30-foot ceilings, Italian marble floors polished to a mirror shine, crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's cars. Everything about the space whispered the same message. You have arrived. You matter. You belong. Unless, apparently, you looked like Monica Lane. She stood at the reception desk with her phone in one hand and her reservation confirmation pulled up on the screen. Her other hand rested lightly on the counter. Not leaning, not demanding, just present. Patient. She'd been standing there for 4 minutes now, watching the two employees behind the desk pretend she didn't exist. The younger one, a blonde woman whose name tag read Brielle Knox, kept glancing up at Monica, then back down at her computer screen, then over at her colleague. The dance was so practiced, it almost looked choreographed. The other employee, a man in his late 20s named Dylan Shaw, according to his badge, had his jaw set in that particular way people do when they've already decided something and are just waiting for you to go away. Monica had seen this performance before. Different city, different hotel, same script. "Excuse me," she said, her voice even and clear, not loud, not soft, just there. "I have a reservation under Monica Lane, penthouse suite, confirmation number." "We're looking into it," Brielle interrupted, not making eye contact. Her fingers weren't even moving on the keyboard. Monica let 3 seconds pass. "You haven't typed anything in 2 minutes." Brielle's face flushed. Dylan straightened, stepping closer to his colleague in what was probably meant to be a show of solidarity, but looked more like defensive positioning. "Ma'am, we need to verify some things. If you could just wait." "I've been waiting," Monica said. "I'd like to check in now, please." That's when Grant Hollis emerged from the back office. He was exactly what Central Casting would send if you ordered hotel manager who peaked in college. Early 40s, hair gelled within an inch of its life, suit tailored just a touch too tight to suggest success he hadn't quite achieved. He took one look at Monica, and something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe, or confirmation of a suspicion. Whatever it wasn't pleasant. "Is there a problem here?" His tone suggested he already knew the answer and had chosen a side. Brielle jumped on the lifeline. "Mr. Hollis, this guest is insisting she has a reservation, but we're having trouble verifying her information." Monica pulled out her driver's license and credit card, a sleek black card that caught the light, and placed both on the counter. "Monica Lane, reservation confirmed 2 weeks ago, penthouse suite, 5 nights. Everything's already been charged to this card." Grant picked up the cards like they were evidence at a crime scene, holding them at arm's length between 2 fingers. He studied the license for a long moment, his expression moving through several variations of skeptical before landing on dismissive. "This doesn't match our records," he announced. "Then your records are wrong," Monica said, "because I made the reservation myself, received email confirmation, and my card was charged the full amount 3 days ago. Our system shows no such reservation." Grant set her cards down on the counter, didn't slide them back to her, just dropped them like he was done touching them. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The words hung in the air for a moment, so absurd that Monica actually paused to make sure she'd heard him correctly. "I'm sorry?" she said. "This is a luxury establishment," Grant continued, his voice getting louder, more performative. He was playing to an audience now, the other guests in the lobby, the staff, the invisible corporate hierarchy he imagined was watching and approving. "We have standards, we have policies, and we don't appreciate people trying to game the system." "Game the system," Monica repeated the words slowly, letting them sit there between them. "By making a legitimate reservation." with a credit card that was already charged, for a room that exists. The reservation doesn't exist in our system, Grant said. He crossed his arms. Which means it's fraudulent, and I'm well within my rights to refuse service and ask you to leave the property. A small crowd was beginning to gather. Other guests pausing on their way to the elevator or the restaurant. A couple of tourists with cameras around their necks. A business traveler with a rolling suitcase who'd stopped to watch the confrontation unfold. Monica could feel their eyes on her, could feel the weight of their assumptions, their quick judgments, their mental filing of the scene into whatever narrative made sense to them. She'd learned a long time ago that in moments like this, the crowd was never neutral. They were either with you or against you, and their decision usually had nothing to do with facts. I'm not leaving, Monica said quietly. I have a reservation. I've paid for a room. I'm staying here. Grant's face hardened. He turned to Brielle and Dylan. Call security. That won't be necessary, a new voice cut in. Everyone turned. The woman who'd spoken was petite, dark-haired, maybe 50, wearing the burgundy blazer that marked her as part of the concierge team. Her name tag read Marisol Vega, and she was moving toward the desk with the kind of purposeful speed that suggested she'd been watching this unfold and had reached her breaking point. Marisol, this doesn't concern you, Grant said sharply. Actually, it does. Marisol stepped behind the desk and pulled up something on the computer. Her eyes scanned the screen, widened slightly, then scanned again like she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. Mr. Hollis, there is a reservation for Monica Lane, penthouse suite, 5 nights, confirmed and paid in full. The lobby went very quiet. Grant moved to look at the screen, his expression already shifting into defensive mode. That's not... There must be some mistake. Run it again. Marisol didn't move. I've run it 3 times. The reservation is legitimate, and it's marked with a VIP override code. A what? Dylan leaned in to look. An owner-level VIP override, Marisol repeated, her voice steady but her hands shaking slightly as she gripped the edge of the desk. Which means this reservation was placed by someone with executive authority, someone who doesn't need approval. Someone who... I don't care what code it has, Grant interrupted, his voice rising. I'm the manager of this property, and I'm telling you that reservation is suspicious. Look at her. He gestured at Monica like she was Exhibit A in a case he was prosecuting. Does she look like she can afford the penthouse suite? The words landed like a slap. Several people in the growing crowd gasped audibly. One woman, 30s, expensive athleisure wear, phone already out, muttered, "Oh my God," loud enough for everyone to hear. A man in a business suit near the elevator shook his head in disgust. Monica didn't move, didn't react, just stood there, looking at Grant Hollis with an expression that gave away absolutely nothing. Mr. Hollis, Marisol said carefully, I think you should remember who signs your paychecks, Grant snapped. And I think you should remember that I make the decisions about who stays in this hotel and who doesn't. Now call security like I asked, or I'll find someone who will. Brielle already had the phone to her ear. Security to the front desk, please. We have a situation. Monica finally moved. She picked up her license and credit card from the counter, sliding them back into her wallet with deliberate calm. You're making a mistake, she said to Grant. The only mistake here is you thinking you could walk into a place like this and what? Monica's voice was still quiet, but there was something underneath it now, something sharp. Say it. Finish that sentence. Grant's mouth opened, then closed. Whatever he'd been about to say, some survival instinct kicked in and stopped him, but his face said it anyway. His expression, his posture, the way he was looking at her, it all screamed what he wouldn't put into words. 2 security guards emerged from a side hallway, both large men in ill-fitting uniforms. Grant pointed at Monica. Escort her out of the building. She's trespassing. I'm not trespassing, Monica said. I have a legitimate reservation. This woman just confirmed it. She gestured to Marisol. The security guards looked uncertain, glancing between Monica and Grant like they were trying to figure out which way the power flowed. She has a confirmed reservation, Marisol said again, louder this time. It's in the system. She's a registered guest. Then there's something wrong with the system, Grant shot back. Dylan, lock that card in the safe. We're going to need to investigate this before... You're going to what? Monica's voice cut through the lobby like a gunshot. Everyone froze. Dylan had reached for her credit card, had actually picked it up off the counter where she'd just set it down. Now he stood there holding it, looking suddenly aware that he'd made a terrible error in judgment. Put it down. Monica's words were spaced out, deliberate, each one its own sentence. Mr. Hollis told me to... Dylan stammered. I don't care what he told you. That's my property. Put it down, or I'm calling the police. Grant stepped forward. You're the one who should be dealing with police. Trying to use fraudulent credentials, attempting to gain access to luxury accommodations you clearly can't afford, creating a disturbance. The woman in athleisure wear stepped closer, phone held high, recording everything. She's been nothing but calm. You're the one yelling. You're the one refusing to honor a confirmed reservation, and everyone in this lobby just heard you question whether she can afford to stay here based on how she looks. I'm documenting all of this, a younger man added, early 20s, styled hair, the look of someone who spent a lot of time in front of a camera. I'm a streamer. Got about 2,000 people watching live right now, and they're all seeing this. Grant's face went pale, then red. You can't... This is private property. Public accommodation, the streamer corrected. First Amendment applies, and your staff just discriminated against a paying customer in front of multiple witnesses. More phones came out. The crowd was growing. Guests, staff members from other parts of the hotel, people who'd heard the commotion and come to see what was happening. The lobby of the Horizon Grand Hotel had transformed from a temple of quiet luxury into something else entirely. A courtroom. A stage. A moment of reckoning captured from a dozen different angles. Dylan still held Monica's credit card, frozen in indecision. Grant made his fatal move. You know what? Fine. We'll verify this right now. He snatched the card from Dylan's hand and turned to the safe behind the desk. One of those small units built into the wall for securing guest valuables. He opened it with his manager's code and dropped Monica's card inside, then locked it. That card stays there until we can confirm it's legitimate and not stolen. If you want it back, you can wait while we contact the fraud department. Otherwise, you can leave. The crowd erupted. Are you serious right now? That's literally theft. Someone call the actual police. This is insane. I'm never staying here again. Marisol's voice rose above the chaos. Mr. Hollis, you can't just confiscate someone's credit card without cause. I have cause, Grant shouted. She doesn't belong here. Look at her. Look at how she's dressed. You think someone who can afford $8,000 a night shows up in a t-shirt and jeans? The lobby went silent again. This time the silence was different. It wasn't shock. It was that horrible heavy quiet that comes right before something breaks forever. The kind of silence where everyone knows a line has just been crossed, and there's no walking it back. Monica looked at Grant Hollis for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. She didn't dial 911. She didn't call a lawyer, though several people in the crowd were loudly suggesting she should. She scrolled through her contacts, selected a name, and hit call. The phone rang once, then a voice answered. Female, professional, alert. Monica, everything okay? No, Monica said calmly. I'm at the Horizon Grand, Seattle property. I tried to check into the penthouse suite I reserved. The manager refused service, confiscated my credit card, called security, and just announced to an entire lobby of witnesses that I don't belong here based on my appearance. I need you to pull the security footage for the past 15 minutes, timestamp this call, and have legal standing by. There was a brief pause on the other end. Then, done. I'm logging everything now. Do you need me to conference anyone else? Not yet, just document. I'll handle the rest. Understood. Call me when you're clear. Monica ended the call and looked at Grant. Really looked at him. And for the first time since she'd walked into the lobby, she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You asked if I can afford $8,000 a night, she said. Her voice carried across the marble floor, clear and precise. The answer is yes, easily. But that's not really what you wanted to know, is it? Grant said nothing. He'd gone very still, the way people do when they start to suspect they've miscalculated badly, but don't yet understand how badly. Monica turned to address the entire lobby. My name is Monica Lane. 3 years ago, I bought this hotel. Not a room, not a suite. The hotel. The Horizon Grand Seattle is one of 12 properties in a portfolio I acquired through Lane Hospitality Group, which means I don't rent the penthouse suite. She let that hang for a moment. I own it. The lobby exploded. Phones rose higher. Voices overlapped. Someone started clapping. Slow, deliberate. The kind of applause that's more about punctuation than celebration. Others joined in. Not everyone, but enough. Grant Hollis looked like he'd been struck by lightning. His mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Brielle had gone sheet white. Dylan was backing away from the desk like distance might somehow protect him from what was coming. Marisol closed her eyes briefly, whether in relief or dread, it was hard to tell. Monica pulled out her phone again. This time, she put it on speaker so everyone could hear. The call connected immediately. Dana Cross, Corporate Counsel, the voice announced. Dana, it's Monica. I'm on property at the Seattle location. I need you to authorize an immediate personnel action. I'm standing by. What do you need? Monica's eyes never left Grant. Terminate Grant Hollis, current property manager, effective immediately. Revoke all access credentials, collect all company property, and begin a full legal audit of his employment record and any complaints filed during his tenure. Confirmed, Dana said. Grounds? Discrimination, theft of personal property, abuse of authority, and conduct unbecoming. I have multiple witnesses and video documentation. We'll send the full incident report within the hour. Understood. I'm issuing the termination order now. His access will be revoked in 30 seconds. Grant found his voice. You can't... I was protecting the hotel. I was following... You were following what exactly? Monica asked. What policy told you to refuse a confirmed reservation? What training taught you to confiscate a guest's credit card? What part of your job description included announcing to a lobby full of people that someone doesn't belong based on how they're dressed? Grant's security badge, the one clipped to his belt, suddenly buzzed and flashed red, then went dark. In the same instant, the computer system behind the desk logged him out with an audible chime. His access was gone. In addition to Mr. Hollis, Monica continued, still on speaker, I need the same termination protocol for Brielle Knox and Dylan Shaw. Same grounds, same timeline. Wait, no, I was just... Brielle's voice cracked. I was following orders. He's my supervisor. You had a choice, Monica said quietly. You saw a legitimate reservation. You watched a guest being mistreated. You heard the discrimination, and you chose to participate. You chose to call security instead of doing the right thing. Both their badges buzzed and died. Dylan made a small, choked sound. Brielle started crying, not the kind of tears that come from sadness, but the panicked, desperate kind that come from watching your entire life implode in real time. Monica turned to Marisol. Ms. Vega, I'm going to need you to retrieve my credit card from that safe. Use the emergency override code. It's in the duty manager system. Do you know how to access it? Marisol nodded, hands shaking as she pulled up the system. Yes, ma'am. Good. Once you have my card, please check me into my suite. And then I'd like to speak with you privately about a leadership position we have opening up. Marisol's eyes went wide. Yes, of course. Thank you. The safe opened with a soft click. Marisol retrieved Monica's black card with both hands, like it was something precious and fragile, and returned it with a small bow. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry this happened. You're the only person here who tried to stop it, Monica said. That's not something to apologize for. Grant was still standing there, looking shell-shocked, when hotel security, the real security, the ones who reported to corporate, not to him, arrived to escort him, Brielle, and Dylan from the property. They were given exactly 5 minutes to collect their personal belongings from their lockers before being walked out through a service entrance, away from the cameras and the crowd. The woman in athleisure wear, Sierra Park, according to the introduction she gave Monica afterward, had captured everything. The streamer, Evan Cole, had broadcast the entire confrontation to an audience that had grown to over 20,000 viewers. By the time Monica checked into her suite, hashtags were already trending. Horizon Grand Seattle. Monica Lane. Dignity matters. But Monica didn't go to her room. Not yet. She stood in the lobby for another 20 minutes, speaking to guests, answering questions, listening to stories, because once people realized what had happened, they wanted to tell her things. The other times, they'd seen Grant be dismissive. The complaint they'd filed that went nowhere. The friend who'd been treated poorly but thought it wasn't worth fighting. The pattern that had been there all along, just quiet enough to stay beneath the threshold of consequence. Until now. When Monica finally rode the elevator to the penthouse suite, the one she'd reserved, the one she owned, the one she'd been denied, she stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows and looked out at Seattle's skyline. The city lights stretched out below her, thousands of small bright points against the darkness. She thought about Grant's face when he realized what he'd done. The way his certainty had crumbled into panic, the small, desperate sound Brielle made when her badge went dark. She didn't feel satisfaction exactly, or revenge, just a kind of tired clarity. This was always going to happen. Maybe not today, maybe not this hotel. But somewhere, sometime, the math was going to catch up. The calculation that said you could treat people like they didn't matter and face no real cost. That you could make someone feel small and invisible, and there would be no reckoning. Monica had spent 3 years building a hospitality company on a different equation. One where dignity wasn't a luxury amenity reserved for people who looked a certain way or carried a certain status. Where belonging wasn't conditional. And tonight, in a marble lobby under crystal chandeliers, that equation had been tested. It held. Her phone buzzed. Dana Cross, following up. Full termination processed. Legal reviewing all complaint records. Found some concerning patterns. Recommend deeper audit. We'll brief you tomorrow. Monica replied, approved. Expand the scope. If there's more, I want to know about it. Because there was always more. There was always a paper trail, a pattern, a system that had protected bad behavior for just long enough that it felt normal, permanent, unchangeable. Monica set her phone down and looked out at the city again. Nothing was permanent. Everything could change. And sometimes, all it took was one person refusing to leave a lobby. The morning after the lobby incident, Monica woke to 73 missed calls. She lay in the California king bed of the penthouse suite, the one she'd been denied less than 12 hours ago, and watched Seattle's dawn light filter through floor-to-ceiling windows. Her phone sat on the nightstand, buzzing with the kind of insistence that meant the world had noticed what happened and wanted her response. She didn't reach for it yet. Instead, she got up, made coffee in the suite's full kitchen, and stood at those same windows she'd looked through last night. The city was waking up below her, traffic beginning to move, lights coming on in office buildings, people starting their days with no idea that a video of a hotel lobby confrontation had been viewed 8 million times overnight. 8 million. The number sat in her mind like something surreal. A week ago, she'd been Monica Lane, owner of a mid-sized hospitality company that most people had never heard of. Private, deliberate, successful in ways that didn't require public attention. Now she was a hashtag. Her phone buzzed again. This time she picked it up. The most recent call was from her executive assistant, Janice Way, who'd been with Lane Hospitality Group since the beginning and knew better than to call this early unless it mattered. Monica dialed back. Janice answered on the first ring. You've seen the numbers? 8 million views. I saw. That's just Evan Cole's stream. Sierra Park's video hit 12 million. There are compilation clips, reaction videos, news segments. CNN wants an interview. So does The Times. NPR called. The governor's office sent a formal inquiry about discrimination policies in Washington hospitality. Monica, this is out of control, Monica finished. I was going to say an opportunity, but sure, we can go with your version. Janice's voice carried that particular mix of stress and dark humor that came from years of managing crises together. What do you want me to tell them? Monica took a sip of coffee. It was good coffee. The penthouse came with premium everything. Tell them I'll make a statement this afternoon. Not an interview, a statement. And I want it on our terms, not theirs. Meaning? Meaning, I'm not interested in talking about what Grant Hollis did to me. I'm interested in talking about what we're going to do to make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. There was a pause, then Janice said quietly, You're going after the whole system, aren't you? The whole system failed last night. One manager didn't create that culture alone. He was enabled, protected, probably for years. So yes, I'm going after all of it. The board is going to lose their minds. The board works for me, Monica reminded her. Set up a call for 10 a.m. I want Dana there, plus HR leadership and our compliance team. And Janice, pull every complaint filed at the Seattle property for the last 5 years. Every single one. I want names, dates, resolutions, and who signed off on them. Already done. I started pulling files at 5 this morning. Monica, it's bad. How bad? 17 formal complaints in 3 years. Discrimination, harassment, hostile treatment. Every single one was resolved internally with no disciplinary action. Grant Hollis's name appears in 11 of them. Monica's grip tightened on her coffee cup. Send me everything. I want to read it before the call. She hung up and opened her laptop. The files were already waiting in her inbox, organized with Janice's typical precision. Monica started reading. The first complaint came from a black family who'd been questioned about their ability to pay despite having a confirmed reservation and valid credit card. The second was from a Latino couple who'd been followed by security through the hotel corridors as a precaution. The third was from a woman in a hijab who'd been asked to verify her identity 3 separate times in one evening. All of them had Grant Hollis's signature on the resolution paperwork. All of them concluded with language like misunderstanding resolved, or customer education provided, or no policy violation found. Monica read all 17. By the time she finished, her coffee was cold and her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a very specific kind of rage that came from seeing a pattern so clear, so documented, and yet so completely ignored. Someone had known. Multiple people had known. And they'd let it continue because it was easier than doing something about it. She was still reading when her phone rang again. This time it was Dana Cross, her corporate counsel. You need to see this, Dana said without preamble. I'm looking at the complaint files now. Not those. Turn on the news, any channel. Monica found the remote and flipped to CNN. The morning anchor was mid-sentence, and we're joined now by hospitality industry expert Dr. Marcus Chen to discuss the viral video that's sparking a national conversation about discrimination in luxury hotels. Dr. Chen, what's your reaction to what we saw in that lobby? The screen split to show a gray-haired man in glasses. What we're seeing is a pattern that's been normalized in the luxury hospitality industry for decades. The assumption that certain people belong in certain spaces and others don't. What makes this case extraordinary is that the owner herself was the one being discriminated against, which exposed just how deep these biases run. The staff didn't know who she was, so they revealed exactly what they thought of people who look like her. Monica turned up the volume. The anchor leaned forward. And we've learned this morning that Monica Lane, the owner in question, has terminated 3 employees and ordered a full investigation. Some are calling this swift justice. Others say it's an overreaction. What's your take? I think Monica Lane did exactly what she should have done, Dr. Chen said firmly. But the real question isn't whether those 3 individuals deserve to be fired. They did. The real question is what happens next. Because if this was happening in Seattle, it's happening in other properties. And if it's happening in Lane Hospitality Group hotels, it's happening across the industry. This can't be about one manager. It has to be about the entire culture that made him possible. The anchor nodded. We reached out to Lane Hospitality Group for comment. A spokesperson said Ms. Lane will be making a statement later today. We'll bring that to you live when it happens. Monica muted the TV. Dana was still on the line. He's right, Monica said. I know. If I don't go all the way with this, if I just fire 3 people and move on, then I'm part of the problem. I know that too, Dana said, which is why I spent the last 4 hours drafting a proposal for the most comprehensive audit and reform initiative this company has ever seen. Want to hear it? I want to do more than hear it. I want to implement it. Even if it means pulling back the curtain on everything, even if we find more problems, even if it costs millions and takes years. Monica looked at her reflection in the darkened TV screen. She thought about the family who'd been questioned about payment, the couple followed by security, the woman asked to verify her identity 3 times, all the people who'd experienced what she experienced last night but didn't own the building, didn't have the power to make calls that ended careers, couldn't force accountability. Especially then, she said. Dana exhaled. All right, I'll send you the full proposal. But Monica, you need to know, this is going to get worse before it gets better. The media attention, the scrutiny, the pushback from people who think you're overreacting or being divisive or whatever narrative they want to spin. Are you ready for that? I became ready the moment Grant Hollis told me I didn't belong in my own lobby. At 10 a.m., Monica joined a video conference with 12 people who collectively represented the legal, ethical, and operational backbone of Lane Hospitality Group. Dana Cross had her camera on from the corporate office in San Francisco. Beside her was Patricia Morgan, Chief HR Officer, a woman in her 60s who'd been in hospitality longer than Monica had been alive. Also present were the heads of compliance, training, operations, and 3 board members who'd demanded to be included. Monica didn't waste time with pleasantries. You've all seen the video by now, she began. You've all read the complaint files I had Janice distribute this morning. So let's be very clear about what we're discussing. This isn't about one bad manager. This is about a system that let him operate with impunity for 3 years despite 17 documented complaints. I want to know how that happened, who enabled it, and what we're going to do to make sure it never happens again. One of the board members, Gerald Hutchins, old money, old school, cleared his throat. Monica, with all respect, I think we need to be careful about overreacting here. 3 terminations sends a strong message. But launching some kind of corporate-wide investigation based on 1 incident, 18 incidents, Monica interrupted. 17 prior complaints plus what happened to me, that we know of. How many didn't file reports? How many just left and never came back? That's speculation, Gerald said. It's statistics, Patricia Morgan cut in. Her voice was sharp. Industry research shows that for every formal complaint filed, there are typically 7 to 10 incidents that go unreported. If we have 17 documented cases, we're likely looking at over 100 actual incidents. Gerald frowned. Even if that's true, it is true, Dana said. And here's what else is true. We are now the subject of national media attention. Every decision we make from this point forward is going to be scrutinized. If we do the bare minimum, we'll be accused of performative action and damage control. If we do nothing, we'll be accused of complicity. The only way forward is to do the right thing, comprehensively, transparently, and thoroughly. Another board member, Yolanda Reeves, spoke up. She was younger than Gerald, sharper, someone who'd built her fortune in tech and understood how fast reputations could be destroyed. Dana's right. This isn't about whether we investigate. It's about how deep we're willing to dig and what we're willing to do with what we find. So, Monica, what are you proposing? Monica shared her screen. The proposal Dana had drafted appeared, a 40-page document titled Dignity Initiative, Comprehensive Audit and Reform Protocol. Here's what I want to implement, Monica said. Effective immediately, an 18-month independent audit of all 12 properties in our portfolio, not internal review, external auditors with expertise in civil rights and discrimination law. They'll examine every complaint filed in the last 5 years, interview current and former staff, review security footage, and assess hiring and promotion patterns. She scrolled down. Second, mandatory company-wide retraining, not the 1-hour online module that everyone clicks through. Real training, multi-day sessions led by experts in implicit bias, inclusive hospitality, and de-escalation. Every employee, every property, no exceptions. And completion isn't optional. It's a condition of continued employment. Patricia Morgan was nodding. Gerald looked like he'd bitten into something sour. Monica continued. Third, we're implementing a new complaint system with teeth. Third-party reporting channel, 48-hour mandatory response time, automatic escalation to corporate if property-level management doesn't act, and most importantly, protection for complainants and whistleblowers. Anyone who reports discrimination gets automatic immunity from retaliation backed by legal guarantee. That's going to be expensive, Gerald said. You know what else is expensive? Monica replied. Lawsuits, settlements, PR disasters, losing customers, losing talent, losing our reputation. This isn't about expense, it's about investment. Yolanda leaned forward. I want to hear the rest. Fourth, leadership accountability. We're doing a full review of everyone in a management position. If you were in a position to know about complaints and did nothing, you're done. If you were the subject of multiple complaints, you're done. If you created or enabled a hostile environment, you're done. This isn't about second chances for people who've already had dozens of chances. Patricia pulled up something on her own screen. I've been running preliminary numbers based on the complaint data. If we apply that standard across all properties, we're looking at potentially removing anywhere from 15 to 30 people in leadership positions. The conference went quiet. 30 people, Gerald repeated. You want to fire 30 managers and supervisors? I want to remove 30 people who failed in their most basic responsibility, treating human beings with dignity, Monica said. And yes, it's going to be disruptive. Yes, we'll have to promote from within and hire externally to fill gaps. Yes, it will be expensive and difficult and uncomfortable, but the alternative is continuing to employ people who make our hotels unsafe for guests and staff alike. Another board member, Michael Torres, spoke for the first time. What about the financial impact? We need projections. Dana took that one. Worst case scenario, 18 months of audit costs, complete leadership overhaul, comprehensive training, new systems implementation. We're looking at somewhere between $12 and $15 million, plus potential settlements for past complaints. Best case, $8 to $10 million if the audit doesn't uncover major additional issues. That's a significant hit, Michael said. And if we don't do this? Monica asked. What's the cost then? Because I guarantee you, every person in this company is going to be watching to see what we do next. Every guest is watching. The entire industry is watching. We can spend $10 million now to fix this right. Or we can spend $10 million in legal fees and settlements while our reputation burns down around us. Which sounds like the better investment? Yolanda smiled slightly. When you put it that way. I'm not putting it any way, Monica said. I'm telling you what's going to happen. This initiative is moving forward. The only question is whether you're on board or whether I need to find board members who are. Gerald's face went red. You can't just... I can, Monica interrupted. I own controlling interest in this company. I can remove and replace board members. I'd prefer not to. I'd prefer to have your support. But I will not compromise on this. Not after what I saw in those complaint files. Not after what happened to me in that lobby. Not when I know there are people right now, today, who are being made to feel like they don't belong in places they have every right to be. The silence that followed was heavy. Then Patricia Morgan spoke. I'm in. This should have been done years ago. I take responsibility for not pushing harder when I saw the warning signs. I'm not making that mistake again. I'm in, Yolanda said immediately. In, Michael added. All eyes turned to Gerald. He sat there for a long moment, jaw working, pride battling with pragmatism. Finally, he sighed. Fine, I'm in. But I want quarterly reports on costs and progress. And if this turns into some kind of witch hunt, it won't, Monica said. This is about accountability, not revenge. We're going to be fair, thorough, transparent, but we're also going to be uncompromising about standards. That's the deal. Gerald nodded stiffly. Good, Monica said. Dana, I want the full initiative proposal sent to all properties by end of business today. Patricia, start identifying interim leadership to fill the gaps we're about to create. And someone get me a list of the best civil rights auditing firms in the country. I want to interview 3 finalists by Friday. The meeting continued for another 90 minutes, hammering out details, assigning responsibilities, building timelines. By the time it ended, Monica felt like she'd run a marathon. But underneath the exhaustion was something else, a sense of forward motion, of actually doing something instead of just talking about it. She closed her laptop and stood up, stretching her back. Through the windows, Seattle looked crisp and bright, the kind of perfect fall day that made you forget rain existed. Her phone rang. Janice. You're going to want to see this, her assistant said. Check your email. Someone just sent something to our general corporate address. It's marked urgent and it's... Well, you should just read it. Monica opened her email. The message was from an address she didn't recognize. Email protected. The subject line read, You're not the only one. She clicked it open. Miss Lane, my name is Rachel Peterson. You don't know me, but I worked at the Horizon Grand Seattle from 2019 to 2022 as a front desk supervisor. I quit because I couldn't stand working for Grant Hollis anymore. I filed 3 separate complaints about his behavior: the way he treated guests who didn't look right to him, the way he talked about people behind their backs, the way he protected other staff who did the same thing. All 3 of my complaints were dismissed. I was told I was being oversensitive, that I didn't understand the hospitality business, that maintaining standards sometimes meant making judgment calls. When I kept pushing, they started cutting my hours. Then they eliminated my position entirely and offered me a demotion to part-time front desk associate. I took a job at another hotel rather than accept that. I told myself it was better to just move on, stop making waves, let it go. But then I saw your video last night. I saw you standing there while Grant did to you exactly what I watched him do to dozens of other people. And I saw you not let it go. I saw you demand accountability. I saw you use your power to make things right. So I'm writing to tell you that you're doing the right thing. And to tell you that if you need someone to testify, to go on record, to share what really happened in that hotel before you owned it, I will. I'm ready to tell the truth, even if it's hard. Because you're right. This can't keep happening. Thank you for not leaving that lobby. Rachel Peterson. Monica read the email 3 times. Then she forwarded it to Dana with a single line. Get her on the phone, today. 3 hours later, Monica stood in a conference room at the hotel, not the penthouse, but a proper meeting space, and looked at the 6 people assembled before her. Marisol Vega was there, along with 5 other Seattle property employees who'd asked to speak with her directly. Word had spread fast about what Monica was doing, about the audit, the reforms, the accountability measures, and people wanted to talk. A young man named James spoke first. He was maybe 25, worked in housekeeping, had the nervous energy of someone who'd never expected to be in a room like this. Miss Lane, I just want to say thank you, he began. I've worked here for 3 years and I've seen things, bad things. The way certain guests get treated differently, the way some of us on staff get talked to. I reported it once, went to HR, filled out the forms, did everything right. Nothing happened, so I stopped reporting it, but I never stopped seeing it. A woman named Carmen, early 40s, from the restaurant staff, nodded. Same. I watched Grant refuse to seat a family last year because he said they seemed suspicious. They had a reservation. They were dressed nice. They were just not white. And when I said something to my supervisor, I got written up for questioning management decisions. One by one, they shared their stories. Not dramatic confrontations like what happened in the lobby, just the quiet daily erosion of dignity that happened when bias became policy and discrimination became protocol. The kind of thing that didn't make headlines but broke something in people anyway. Monica listened to all of it. When they finished, she said, I need you to know something. Everything you just told me matters. Every incident you witnessed, every complaint that got dismissed, every time you were punished for doing the right thing, it all matters. And it's all going to be part of the audit. Marisol looked up. Will we have protection? If we talk to the auditors? Yes, Monica said firmly. Full whistleblower protection, legal immunity from retaliation. And if anyone tries to punish you for participating in this process, they'll be terminated immediately. That's not a policy. That's a promise. James swallowed hard. What if we're worried about our jobs anyway? Like, what if the audit finds things and the whole hotel gets shut down or sold or... That's not going to happen, Monica interrupted. This hotel isn't closing, but it is changing, and I'm going to need people who care about making it better. People who've seen the problems and want to fix them. People like all of you. She paused. In fact, I'm going to need new leadership, management positions, training roles, oversight committees. If you're interested in being part of the solution, I want to hear from you. Carmen's eyes widened. You're serious? Completely. Marisol, you're already being promoted to interim property manager while we search for permanent leadership. But I'm going to need a full team. People I can trust. People who understand what dignity looks like because they know what it feels like when it's taken away. The room went very quiet. Then James said, I'm in. Me too, Carmen added. One by one, they all agreed. All. Monica left that meeting feeling something she hadn't felt since the lobby confrontation. Hope. Real, tangible hope that this could actually work. That change was possible. That the system could be rebuilt from the inside by the people who'd survived it. At 4 p.m., she stood in front of a camera crew and delivered the statement the world had been waiting for. She kept it simple, direct, true. My name is Monica Lane. 2 days ago, I was discriminated against in a hotel I own. That experience was humiliating, infuriating, and unacceptable, but it was also clarifying. Because if it could happen to me, someone with resources, with power, with the ability to fight back, then it's definitely happening to people who don't have those advantages. People who face this treatment and have no recourse, no platform, no way to make it stop. This statement isn't about what happened to me. It's about what happens next. Lane Hospitality Group is launching a comprehensive 18-month audit of every property we own. We're examining every complaint, every policy, every practice. We're bringing in independent experts. We're retraining every employee. We're replacing any leader who enabled discrimination. And we're building new systems to make sure this never happens again. This will be expensive. It will be difficult. It will be uncomfortable. But it's necessary. Because hospitality means everyone is welcome. Not just people who look a certain way or dress a certain way or meet someone's arbitrary standard of belonging. Everyone. That's the promise. And I'm going to spend however long it takes to make that promise real. The statement went viral faster than the original video. By evening, Monica had received messages from civil rights organizations offering support, from other hospitality companies asking for guidance, from dozens of former employees sharing their own stories, and from Rachel Peterson, who called at 8 p.m. and spoke for 90 minutes about everything she'd witnessed, everything she'd reported, everything that had been ignored. Monica took notes, recorded the conversation with Rachel's permission, added it all to the growing file of evidence that would fuel the audit. When she finally hung up, she sat in the penthouse living room and looked out at Seattle's night sky. The city lights sparkled below her, each one a small, bright promise against the darkness. Her phone buzzed one more time, a text from Janice. The governor wants to meet with you, says Washington is considering statewide hospitality regulations and wants your input. Should I schedule it? Monica smiled and typed back, yes, schedule it, because this was just the beginning. The meeting with Governor Sarah Mitchell happened 5 days later in a conference room that overlooked Puget Sound, all glass and steel and the kind of carefully neutral decor that said official business without saying much else. Monica arrived 15 minutes early, which was her habit, and found the governor already there with 3 aides and someone Monica hadn't expected, Cal Turner. Cal Turner, who according to the preliminary audit findings had been the regional executive who'd helped Grant Hollis bury complaints for 2 years before retiring with a full pension and a going-away party that cost Lane Hospitality Group $12,000. Monica stopped in the doorway. Her assistant Janice, 2 steps behind her, went very still. Ms. Lane, Governor Mitchell stood and extended a hand. She was in her late 50s, silver hair cut sharp, the kind of presence that filled a room without effort. Thank you for making time. I know you have a lot on your plate right now. Monica shook her hand, but her eyes were on Cal. He sat at the far end of the table, looking comfortable in a way that made her jaw tighten. He was maybe 60, tan from what was probably a retirement spent golfing, wearing a polo shirt and khakis like this was a casual social call. Governor, Monica said carefully, I wasn't aware Mr. Turner would be joining us. Cal reached out after your statement went public, the governor explained. He has some concerns about the direction of your audit and wanted to share his perspective. I thought it might be productive to have everyone in the same room. Productive. That was one word for it. Monica sat down. Janice took the seat beside her, laptop already open, fingers poised over the keyboard like a court stenographer ready to document everything. Mr. Turner, Monica said, her voice perfectly polite and completely cold, what perspective would you like to share? Cal leaned back in his chair, that easy smile still in place. First, I want to say I think what happened to you was unfortunate. Really unfortunate. Grant always had a tendency to be a bit overzealous about security, and it sounds like he crossed a line. A bit overzealous, Monica repeated. He confiscated my credit card and tried to have me removed from a building I own. Right, and you handled it. You fired him. That's appropriate. Cal spread his hands like he was being reasonable. What I'm concerned about is this audit you're launching. Monica, I worked in hospitality for 35 years. I know how these things look from the outside versus how they actually work. And I'm worried you're about to spend a lot of money chasing problems that don't really exist. Monica felt Janice tense beside her, felt her own pulse kick up a notch, not from anxiety, but from the very specific anger that came from being gaslit by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Problems that don't exist, she said slowly. Like the 17 formal complaints filed during Grant's tenure? Or the 3 complaints Rachel Peterson filed about Grant that you personally dismissed? Cal's smile flickered. Just for a second, but Monica saw it. I don't recall the specifics of every complaint from 3 years ago, he said, but I can tell you that in hospitality, we get complaints all the time. People who don't like their room, don't like the service, don't like being asked to follow policies. You have to filter out the noise from the legitimate issues. And who decides what's noise? Monica asked. Management. That's literally the job. Cal shifted forward. Look, I get it. You're new to operations. You bought these properties, 3 years ago? You're still learning the business. But I ran the Western region for a decade. I know these hotels. I know the staff. I know the guests. And I'm telling you, Grant Hollis wasn't perfect, but he wasn't some kind of monster either. He was doing his job. One of the governor's aides, a younger woman named Teresa Chen, looked uncomfortable. Mr. Turner, I don't think anyone is suggesting— What I'm suggesting, Cal interrupted, is that Monica is about to tear apart a functioning operation based on a viral video and some overblown accusations. And Governor, with all respect, if Washington State starts implementing regulations based on this kind of reactionary response, you're going to hurt businesses across the entire hospitality sector. Governor Mitchell folded her hands on the table. That's quite a statement, Cal. Monica, I'd like to hear your response. Monica took a breath. Let it out slowly. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but it carried. Mr. Turner, you said you don't recall the specifics of Rachel Peterson's complaints. Let me refresh your memory. She nodded to Janice, who pulled up a document on her laptop and turned it so everyone could see. On March 15, 2021, Rachel filed a complaint alleging that Grant Hollis had refused service to a black couple with a confirmed reservation, claiming their credit card looked suspicious. She provided the names of 3 witnesses. Your response, documented here, was that Grant had followed proper fraud prevention protocol and no action was needed. Cal's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Monica continued. On July 7, 2021, Rachel filed a second complaint alleging that Grant had instructed security to follow a group of Latino guests through the hotel because they didn't match the clientele profile. Again, she provided witness statements. Your response was that security protocols were at the manager's discretion and no policy violation had occurred. Janice scrolled down. On November 2, 2021, Rachel filed a third complaint alleging that Grant had made explicitly racist comments about guests during a staff meeting, including referring to certain demographics as problems we need to filter out. She provided the date, time, location, and names of 6 staff members who were present. Your response, Mr. Turner, was that you'd spoken with Grant and he denied making such comments, and that Rachel appeared to have difficulty adapting to management's expectations. The room had gone very quiet. Monica locked eyes with Cal. 3 months after that final complaint, Rachel's position was eliminated and she was offered a demotion. She quit instead. Does any of that refresh your memory? Cal's face had gone red. That's a very selective reading of those situations. There were legitimate business reasons for all of those decisions. I'm sure there were, Monica said. Just like I'm sure there were legitimate business reasons for the other 14 complaints you dismissed during your tenure. Just like I'm sure there's a legitimate business reason why not a single complaint filed about discrimination during the 2 years you oversaw the Seattle property resulted in any disciplinary action whatsoever. You're twisting this into something it wasn't, Cal snapped. I protected that hotel. I protected the brand. I made hard decisions that kept operations running smoothly. You protected Grant Hollis, Monica corrected. You gave him cover to discriminate against guests and staff. You silenced people who tried to speak up. You created a culture where doing the wrong thing was easier than doing the right thing. And then you retired with full benefits while the problems you enabled continued to harm people. Cal stood up abruptly. I'm not going to sit here and be accused of— Then leave, Monica said. But before you do, I want you to know that everything you just said is being documented. Every complaint you dismissed is being reviewed. Every decision you made is being examined by independent auditors. And if they find what I think they're going to find, you're going to be named in a very detailed report about systemic failures in Lane Hospitality Group's management structure. You can't do that, Cal said. I'm retired. I'm not even employed by your company anymore. I can't fire you, Monica agreed, but I can tell the truth about what you did when you worked for me. And I can make sure everyone knows exactly how you used your position to protect discrimination and punish people who tried to stop it. Cal looked at Governor Mitchell. Are you going to let her threaten me like this? The governor's expression was unreadable. Mr. Turner, I invited you here to share your perspective. You've done that. But I have to say the evidence, Ms. Lane just presented raises serious questions about your credibility. I think it might be best if you excused yourself while Ms. Lane and I continue our discussion. Cal's face went from red to purple. He looked like he wanted to say something else, but whatever survival instinct he had left kicked in and kept his mouth shut. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair and walked out, not quite slamming the door, but close enough that the message was clear. When he was gone, the governor let out a long breath. Well, that was illuminating. I apologize if I made this uncomfortable, Monica said. Don't apologize for telling the truth. Governor Mitchell leaned back in her chair. Teresa, can you make sure we have copies of those complaint files? Her aide nodded. Already requesting them. The governor turned her attention fully to Monica. Here's where I am. I watched your statement. I've read the preliminary reports about your audit. And after what I just witnessed, I'm convinced this isn't about one bad manager or one isolated incident. This is about a systemic problem that needs systemic solutions. That's exactly what I'm trying to implement, Monica said. I know, and I want to help. Governor Mitchell pulled out a folder. I've been working with the state legislature on a hospitality accountability bill. It would require hotels above a certain size to maintain independent complaint systems, mandatory bias training for all customer-facing staff, and regular civil rights audits. We're calling it the Dignity and Hospitality Act. Monica felt something shift in her chest. Hope, maybe, or validation. That's extraordinary. It's also going to face massive pushback from the hospitality lobby, the governor said bluntly. They're going to say it's government overreach, too expensive, bad for business. That's where you come in. You want me to testify? I want you to lead, Governor Mitchell corrected. I want you to show the industry that doing this right isn't just ethical, it's good business. I want Lane Hospitality Group to become the model that proves change is possible. Can you do that? Monica thought about Rachel Peterson, who'd been punished for telling the truth, about James and Carmen and Marisol, who'd watched discrimination happen and had no power to stop it, about every person who'd ever stood in a lobby and been made to feel like they didn't belong. Yes, she said. I can do that. They spent the next 2 hours mapping out strategy. The governor's team shared draft legislation. Monica shared preliminary audit findings. They identified potential allies in the business community, anticipated opposition, planned a coordinated media approach. By the time the meeting ended, Monica had committed to testifying before the state legislature and to opening her audit process to public observation as a case study in corporate reform. It was ambitious, risky, the kind of thing that could either transform the industry or blow up spectacularly. Monica chose to believe in the first option. That night, she returned to the penthouse and found a package waiting. No return address, just her name written in careful handwriting on brown paper. She opened it carefully, half expecting something hostile. She'd been getting threatening emails and messages ever since the video went viral. Instead, she found a book, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, and tucked inside the front cover, a note. Ms. Lane, I was the black father who was questioned about payment at your hotel in 2019. My wife and I had saved for 2 years to take our kids somewhere nice for our anniversary. We had a confirmation. We had a credit card. We had done everything right. Grant Hollis still treated us like criminals. We left that night, drove to a different hotel, spent our anniversary trying to explain to our children why we'd been treated that way. I filed a complaint. Nothing happened. So I decided to forget about it. Move on. Not let it ruin what was supposed to be a special memory. But then I saw your video. I saw you refuse to leave. I saw you demand accountability. I saw you use your power to make the change I couldn't. This book is about people who refuse to accept that the way things were was the way things had to be. People who moved, who fought, who persisted, who built better worlds for their children. You're doing that now. Thank you. Marcus Williams. Monica read the note 3 times. Then she opened the book and started reading, standing there in her penthouse kitchen, still in the clothes she'd worn to confront Cal Turner. She read about the Great Migration, about 6 million people who left the South seeking dignity and opportunity, about the courage it took to walk away from what was familiar toward what was possible. She was still reading when Janice called at 10 p.m. "You need to see this," her assistant said without preamble. Someone leaked the Cal Turner complaint files to the press. Every single one. Names, dates, his responses, all of it. It's everywhere. Monica closed the book. Who leaked them? I don't know. Could have been someone on the audit team. Could have been someone who had access to the files before. Could have been Rachel Peterson or one of the other former employees. Does it matter? Monica thought about that. About Cal Turner's face when she'd confronted him with evidence. About the way he'd tried to gaslight her, to minimize, to protect himself. About the fact that people like him rarely faced consequences unless forced. No, she said finally. It doesn't matter. The information was going to come out anyway in the audit report. This just moved up the timeline. The Seattle Times is running a full exposé tomorrow morning, Janice said. They've got quotes from former employees, analysis of the complaint patterns, everything. And Monica, they're not just focusing on Cal, they're asking questions about the entire executive team, about who else knew and what they did about it. Good, Monica said. They should ask those questions. You're not worried? I'm terrified, Monica admitted. But I'd be more terrified of not asking them. What else? 3 more former employees have come forward. 1 from the San Francisco property, 2 from Denver. Same pattern, complaints filed, nothing done, people pushed out when they kept pushing. Dana thinks we're going to find this at every single property. Monica sat down heavily. Then we find it, we document it, we fix it. Even if it means gutting half the management structure? Especially then. Janice was quiet for a moment, then she said, You know this is going to get worse before it gets better, right? The board is already getting nervous. Investors are asking questions. Some of the properties are seeing booking cancellations. I know. And you're still going forward. I'm still going forward. Another pause. Then Janice said softly, Okay, I'm with you. We all are. The whole team. We're with you. Monica felt something loosen in her chest. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Wait until we're on the other side of this. Janice's tone shifted, became more businesslike. The audit team wants to meet tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., and the PR firm we hired wants to prep you for the legislative testimony. Can you do 2 p.m.? I'll make it work. Good. Get some sleep, Monica. You're going to need it. Monica hung up and looked out at the city. Seattle was quieter at this hour, fewer lights, less traffic, but still alive, still moving forward, still full of people trying to build something better. She picked up Marcus Williams' book again and kept reading. The next morning's Seattle Times hit like a bomb going off. The headline read, Pattern of Discrimination. Former executive buried complaints at luxury hotel chain. Below it, a photo of Cal Turner at some corporate event, smiling and holding a glass of champagne. The article was devastating. 32 complaints spanning 7 years across multiple properties. Cal's name on 21 of them. Detailed accounts from former employees describing how they'd been told to manage expectations. Consider the business impact. Not make waves. Quotes from civil rights attorneys calling it a textbook case of institutional discrimination enabled at the highest levels. By noon, Cal Turner had been interviewed by 3 news outlets, each time insisting he'd done nothing wrong, that he'd followed company policy, that this was all a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by someone with an agenda. By 2 p.m., Lane Hospitality Group's stock had dropped 11%. By 4 p.m., Monica was sitting across from Dana Cross and Patricia Morgan in an emergency meeting, looking at a document that made her stomach turn. "This is everyone?" Monica asked. Patricia nodded grimly. Everyone in a management or supervisory position who either filed complaints, had complaints filed against them, or was in a position to know about complaints and did nothing. We cross-referenced the audit data with HR records, email archives, and staff interviews. The list contained 47 names. Monica scanned it. Some she recognized: property managers, regional supervisors, department heads. Some were strangers. All of them were implicated in some way in a system that had failed. 47 people, she said quietly. "If we apply the accountability standards you outline," Dana said, "yes. 47 terminations across 12 properties. That's almost a third of our management structure." "I know." Monica looked up. "Can we operate with that kind of turnover?" Patricia pulled up another document. "It'll be brutal. We'll have to promote aggressively from within, bring in temporary consultants, potentially close some amenities temporarily while we restabilize. But yes, we can operate. The question isn't capability. It's whether you have the stomach for it." Monica thought about Marcus Williams and his family, saving for 2 years for an anniversary trip that ended in humiliation. About Rachel Peterson, losing her job for telling the truth. About every name in the complaint files, every incident, every time someone was made to feel less than human while the people in charge looked the other way. "Do it," she said. "All 47. I want termination letters drafted by end of week. I want severance packages calculated. I want exit interviews conducted and documented. And I want every single person who's being let go to know exactly why. Not corporate speak, not HR language, the truth." They enabled discrimination. They protected bad actors. They failed in their responsibility to create safe, welcoming spaces. That's why they're done. Dana and Patricia exchanged a look. "You're sure?" Dana asked. "I've never been more sure of anything," Monica said. "How long until word leaks?" "Probably by tonight," Patricia said. "News this big doesn't stay contained." She was right. By 8 p.m., the hospitality industry news sites were reporting mass terminations expected at Lane Hospitality Group. By 10 p.m., it was on CNN. By midnight, Monica's phone was blowing up with messages from other hotel chains, from industry associations, from competitors and colleagues, all asking the same question. Had she lost her mind? She turned her phone off and went to bed. The terminations happened on a Thursday morning, coordinated across all 12 properties simultaneously. Monica insisted on being present for the Seattle notifications personally. She sat in a conference room with HR representatives and a lawyer and watched as, one by one, managers were called in and told their employment was ending. Some took it quietly. Some argued, some cried. One man, a facilities director named Ron Kowalski, who dismissed 3 complaints about security guards racially profiling guests, looked Monica in the eye and said, "You're going to regret this. This company will fall apart without people who know how to run it." Monica looked back at him steadily. If the only way to run it is by enabling discrimination, then it deserves to fall apart. But it won't. Because there are good people here who've been waiting for a chance to lead. People who understand that hospitality means treating everyone with dignity. Those are the people who are going to rebuild this company. You're just not going to be one of them. Ron left without another word. By the end of the day, 47 people had been terminated. 47 offices packed up. 47 security badges deactivated. 47 chairs suddenly empty. Monica walked through the Seattle property that evening, seeing the gaps. The front desk, where Brielle and Dylan used to work, now staffed by promoted employees who looked nervous but determined. The manager's office where Grant had sat, now occupied by Marisol Vega, who was on her 3rd cup of coffee and her 20th hour of work, trying to keep operations stable during the transition. Monica knocked on the open door. "How are you holding up?" Marisol looked up, exhausted. "I've been better, but I've also been worse. At least now when I fix problems, they stay fixed instead of getting swept under the rug." "You need help. More staff, more resources, more support." "I need about 6 more hours in every day," Marisol said with a weak smile. "But yeah, support would be good too." Monica pulled up a chair. "Tell me what you need, specifically." They spent an hour going through the gaps, identifying urgent hires, mapping out temporary coverage, building a stabilization plan. When they finished, Marisol looked a little less like she was drowning. "Ms. Lane," she said as Monica stood to leave, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you really think this is going to work? Not just firing the bad managers, the whole thing, the audit, the reforms, changing the culture. Do you think we can actually do it?" Monica thought about the question, about everything she'd seen in the past 2 weeks, the videos, the complaints, the patterns, the pain, the people who'd been hurt, and the people who'd stayed silent, and the system that had made both possible. "I think we don't have a choice," she said finally. "I think if we don't do this, we'll just keep being part of the problem. And I'd rather burn the whole thing down and rebuild it right than keep running a company that makes people feel like they don't belong. So yes, I think it's going to work. Because it has to." Marisol nodded slowly. "Okay, then let's make it work." Monica left the hotel at midnight and drove through Seattle's empty streets back to the penthouse. Her phone, which she'd turned back on, showed 217 new messages. She ignored all of them except one. It was from Governor Mitchell. "Legislative hearing scheduled for Monday. Ready to change the world?" Monica typed back, "Ready." Because ready or not, the world was already changing. And this time, she wasn't leaving any lobby until the change was complete. The Washington State Legislature building looked like it was built to intimidate. Marble columns, vaulted ceilings, the weight of history pressing down from every corner. Monica walked through the main entrance on Monday morning with Janice on one side and Dana on the other, and tried not to think about the fact that her testimony today could determine whether the Dignity and Hospitality Act lived or died. Outside, protesters had already gathered. Some held signs supporting the bill with messages like, "Everyone deserves dignity," and "Hotels for all." Others waved counter-protest signs reading "Government overreach," and "Let businesses run their business." News cameras were everywhere, tracking Monica's path from the parking lot to the building entrance like she was a politician instead of a hotel owner who'd simply refused to leave a lobby. "You ready for this?" Dana asked quietly as they climbed the steps. "No," Monica said honestly, "but I'm doing it anyway." The hearing room was packed, every seat filled, people standing along the walls, cameras positioned at multiple angles. Monica recognized some faces from news coverage: civil rights advocates, hospitality industry lobbyists, a few property owners she'd met at conferences back when her biggest concern was occupancy rates instead of systemic discrimination. Governor Mitchell sat in the front row, giving Monica a small nod of encouragement. And there, 3 rows back, sat Cal Turner with a lawyer Monica didn't recognize. Monica felt Dana tense beside her. "He's allowed to be here," her counsel murmured. "Public hearing. But if he tries to speak, let him," Monica said. "Let everyone see exactly who he is." The committee chair, Senator Patricia Okoye, called the hearing to order. She was in her 60s, a former civil rights attorney who'd spent 3 decades fighting discrimination cases before running for office. Her reputation was formidable. Her patience for nonsense was non-existent. "We're here to consider Senate Bill 22847, the Dignity and Hospitality Act," Senator Okoye began. "This legislation would require hotels with more than 50 rooms to implement independent complaint systems, mandatory anti-discrimination training, and regular civil rights audits. Our first witness today is Monica Lane, CEO of Lane Hospitality Group. Ms. Lane, you have 15 minutes. Monica stood and walked to the witness table. She'd prepared remarks, had them printed and ready. But as she sat down and looked out at all those faces, some hopeful, some hostile, most just waiting to see what she'd say, she set the papers aside. 2 weeks ago, she began, I walked into a hotel I own and was told I didn't belong there. I was questioned, humiliated, and had my property confiscated by a manager who looked at me and decided I couldn't possibly afford to stay in a luxury hotel. The video of that incident has been viewed over 20 million times now. A lot of people have asked me how it felt. If I was angry, if I was scared. The answer is yes to both. But what I felt most was recognition. She paused, letting that word settle. Recognition because I knew immediately what was happening. I'd seen it before. Not to me. I have resources and privilege that protect me from experiencing that kind of discrimination regularly. But I'd seen it happen to others. I'd read about it in complaint files. I'd heard about it from employees who tried to stop it and were punished. I'd watched a system enable it, excuse it, and bury it so deep that most people never knew it was happening. And when it happened to me, when I became the person standing in a lobby being told I didn't belong, I had a choice. I could accept what that manager said. I could leave quietly. I could let it go and move on with my life. Or I could refuse. I could demand accountability. I could use my power to shine a light on something that thrives in darkness. A few people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Monica kept going. Since that night, I've learned things about my own company that shame me. I've learned about complaints that were dismissed, about employees who were silenced, about managers who enabled discrimination for years while executives looked the other way. I've learned that the incident in that lobby wasn't an isolated failure. It was a symptom of a much deeper rot. And I've learned that I'm not the only one. In the past 2 weeks, I've heard from dozens of people who experienced the same thing at other hotels, other cities, other companies. People who were made to feel like they didn't belong in places that advertised themselves as welcoming to everyone. Senator Okoye leaned forward slightly, listening intently. This bill, Monica continued, is about making sure that what happened to me doesn't keep happening to people who can't fight back. It's about creating systems that protect dignity instead of profit. It's about holding the hospitality industry accountable to its own promise, that everyone is welcome, not just people who look a certain way, not just people with a certain amount of money, everyone. Miss Lane, one of the committee members interrupted, Senator Robert Vance, known for his close ties to business lobbyists. With respect, isn't this legislation just government overreach disguised as social justice? Don't businesses have the right to set their own standards and manage their own operations without state interference? Monica looked at him directly. Senator, do you believe businesses have the right to discriminate based on race? Of course not, but do you believe they have the right to refuse service to someone because of how they look, or where they come from, or any other protected characteristic? The law already prohibits that, Vance said stiffly. The law prohibits it, Monica agreed. But the law also requires enforcement. And right now, enforcement depends on individuals filing complaints, navigating complex legal systems, and having the resources to fight back. Most people don't. Most people just leave. They take their business elsewhere. They tell their friends and family to avoid that hotel. They absorb the humiliation and move on. This bill creates structural accountability that doesn't depend on victims having the courage and resources to fight. It requires hotels to build systems that prevent discrimination instead of systems that hide it. Another committee member spoke up. Senator Maria Santos, younger, representing a diverse urban district. Ms. Lane, you mentioned complaint files in your testimony. Can you tell us more about what you found? Monica pulled out a document. In the past 2 weeks, we've conducted a preliminary audit of all 12 Lane Hospitality Group properties. We found 89 complaints filed over 5 years alleging discrimination, harassment, or hostile treatment based on race, ethnicity, religion, or perceived socioeconomic status. Of those 89 complaints, 3 resulted in any disciplinary action. 3 out of 89. The rest were dismissed, minimized, or actively buried by management. The room erupted in murmurs. Cameras flashed. Someone in the back shouted, "That's inexcusable." Senator Okoye gavelled for quiet. Ms. Lane, what happened to the managers who buried those complaints? 47 people in management and supervisory positions were terminated last week, Monica said. Everyone who enabled, protected, or participated in discriminatory practices. Everyone who had the power to stop it and chose not to. They're gone. More murmurs. Senator Vance looked shocked. You fired 47 people? Nearly a third of your management structure? Yes. That's incredibly disruptive. How do you expect to maintain operational standards with that kind of turnover? Monica met his eyes. Senator, I'd rather have temporary operational disruption than permanent ethical failure. And I'd rather promote good people who were held back by a toxic culture than keep bad managers who created that culture. Standards mean nothing if they're built on discrimination. Before Vance could respond, someone stood up in the audience, Cal Turner. That's a lie, he called out. She's lying to you. Those weren't discriminatory practices. Those were legitimate business decisions. I worked for Lane Hospitality for years, and we followed every policy, every regulation. Mr. Turner, Senator Okoye said sharply, You're out of order. Sit down or you'll be removed. She's destroying people's careers based on a witch hunt, Cal continued, his voice rising. I served that company for a decade. I protected the brand. I made hard calls. And now she's smearing me in front of the entire state because she wants to look good on TV. Security moved toward him, but Monica raised a hand. Senator Okoye, if I may? The senator looked surprised but nodded. Monica turned to face Cal directly. Mr. Turner, you're right. You did make hard calls. Like when you dismissed Rachel Peterson's complaint about Grant Hollis making racist comments in a staff meeting. Like when you told Marcus Williams that security had legitimate concerns about his credit card, even though it was valid and he had a confirmed reservation. Like when you eliminated the position of every single person who filed more than one discrimination complaint during your tenure. Those were hard calls. They were also wrong calls. And the fact that you still think you were protecting the brand instead of protecting people tells me exactly why you needed to be named in the audit report. Cal's face went red. You can't prove any of that. I have emails, Monica said calmly. I have documented complaints with your signature. I have witness testimony from former employees. I have a pattern of behavior spanning 7 years across 4 properties. Mr. Turner, the only thing I can't prove is whether you genuinely believed you were doing the right thing or whether you just didn't care. But honestly, I'm not sure it matters. The impact was the same either way. Security reached Cal, but he shook them off. You're making me a scapegoat for systemic issues that existed long before I got there. You bought broken properties, and now you want to blame everyone else? I bought properties you helped break, Monica interrupted. And yes, there were problems before you, and yes, there are problems throughout the industry. That's exactly why we need this legislation. Because people like you exist in every hotel chain. Managers who think protecting the brand means protecting their own authority instead of protecting guests. Executives who think maintaining standards means excluding people who don't fit their narrow idea of who belongs. This bill creates accountability for all of them. Senator Okoye gavelled again. Mr. Turner, you've had your say. Security, please escort him out. Cal was removed, still protesting, still insisting he'd done nothing wrong. The room watched in stunned silence. When the doors closed behind him, Senator Okoye turned back to Monica. That was quite a confrontation, Ms. Lane. That was the truth, Senator. Sometimes the truth is confrontational. Senator Santos spoke again. Ms. Lane, I want to understand the practical implementation. You've terminated 47 managers. You're conducting an 18-month audit. You're implementing new training and complaint systems. What's the actual cost of all this? And how do you respond to critics who say it's financially unsustainable? Monica pulled up another document. Total estimated cost for the full reform initiative is between $12 and $15 million. That includes audit fees, legal costs, training development, new systems implementation, and temporary consultants to fill leadership gaps. It's a significant investment. But here's what we've found in just 2 weeks. Our employee satisfaction scores have increased by 32%. Our staff retention inquiries, people asking about staying long-term, are up 47%. And our bookings, which initially dropped after the video went viral, are now 19% higher than this time last year. That got everyone's attention. People want to stay at hotels where they know they'll be treated with dignity, Monica continued. Employees want to work at companies where doing the right thing is rewarded instead of punished. Investors want to support businesses that align with their values. This isn't just ethical, it's good business. The cost of doing nothing would be much higher. Lost customers, lost talent, lost reputation, ongoing legal exposure. We're not spending money to be nice. We're investing in building a sustainable, ethical business model. Senator Vance wasn't giving up. But you're asking every hotel in Washington to implement these same systems. Small hotels, independent properties, places that don't have $12 million lying around. How is that fair? The bill includes scaled requirements based on property size, Monica said. Small hotels under 50 rooms are exempt. Properties between 50 and 100 rooms have modified standards. And there's a 3-year implementation timeline with state support for training development. This isn't about destroying small businesses. It's about creating minimum standards for human dignity. And if hotels can't meet those standards, Vance pressed, Then they shouldn't be in the hospitality business, Monica said flatly. If your business model depends on the right to discriminate, you don't have a business model. You have a problem. The hearing continued for another hour. Industry lobbyists testified against the bill, warning about costs and competitive disadvantages, and businesses leaving the state. Civil rights advocates testified in favor, sharing stories of discrimination and systemic failures. Former Lane hospitality employees testified, including Rachel Peterson, who told her story in careful, devastating detail, while Cal Turner's empty seat seemed to loom larger with every word. When it was finally over, Senator Okoye called for a committee vote. The bill passed 7-3, with Senator Vance and 2 others voting against. The Dignity and Hospitality Act will move to the full Senate, Senator Okoye announced. Thank you to all witnesses for your testimony. Monica walked out of the hearing room into a barrage of cameras and questions. She gave a brief statement, thanking the committee, expressing hope for the bill's passage, committing to continue reform efforts regardless of legislative outcome, and then escaped to a quiet hallway where Janice and Dana were waiting. That was incredible, Janice said. When you confronted Cal, that was necessary, Monica corrected. Not incredible. Just necessary. Dana was checking her phone. It's already trending. Video of you calling him out has 500,000 views. And Monica, you need to see this. She held up her phone. It was an email from the American Hotel and Lodging Association, the largest hospitality industry group in the country. The subject line read, "Request for meeting." Monica read the preview. Ms. Lane, your testimony today has generated significant discussion within our membership. We would like to invite you to our national conference next month to present your reform model as a potential industry-wide framework. They want me to speak at their national conference, Monica said slowly. They want you to lead industry-wide reform, Dana corrected. This is bigger than Washington State now. This is national. Monica leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. I just wanted to check into a hotel room. Janice laughed, not unkindly, but with the kind of tired recognition that came from being in the trenches together. You did check into a hotel room. You just refused to leave the lobby first. And that refusal is changing everything. They left the Capitol building through a side exit to avoid the crowds. Monica's phone was ringing constantly. News outlets, other hotel chains, advocacy groups, people she'd never heard of, all wanting a piece of her attention. She ignored them all and called the one person she actually wanted to talk to. Marisol answered on the second ring. Ms. Lane, how did the testimony go? It went. How are things there? Chaotic. Good chaotic, I think. We had to turn away 2 news crews trying to film in the lobby. Guest satisfaction scores from this week are the highest we've had in 6 months, and 3 people applied for management positions who are way overqualified. I think they want to be part of what we're building. Monica smiled despite her exhaustion. That's good. That's really good. There's something else, Marisol said, her tone shifting. A guest checked in this afternoon. Older black woman traveling with her granddaughter. She asked to speak with management, so I went down thinking there was a problem, but she just wanted to tell me that she'd seen the video, that she'd spent her whole life being treated like she didn't belong in nice places, and she chose to stay here specifically because of what you did. She wanted us to know that it mattered. Monica felt her throat tighten. What did you tell her? I told her it mattered to us too, that we were making sure her granddaughter grows up in a world where she never has to question whether she belongs. And Monica, she started crying, good crying, and then I started crying. We were both just standing there in the lobby crying while her granddaughter looked mortified. Monica laughed through her own tears. That's beautiful. It is, Marisol agreed. It's also why all of this is worth it. The chaos, the restructuring, the 20-hour days, because that little girl gets to grow up seeing her grandmother treated with dignity in a place that used to treat people like them like threats. That's the world we're building. They talked for a few more minutes about operational details, staffing needs, upcoming challenges. When Monica hung up, Dana was watching her with an expression that was hard to read. You okay? Her counsel asked. I'm terrified, Monica admitted. I just committed to transforming an entire industry. I fired half my management team. I'm spending millions on reforms that might fail. I'm testifying before legislatures and speaking at conferences and becoming the face of something way bigger than me. And I have no idea if any of it will actually work. But you're doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway, Monica confirmed. Because Marisol is right. That little girl deserves to grow up in a better world. And if I have the power to help build that world, I don't get to choose not to use it. Dana nodded slowly. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Even if it costs millions? Even if it disrupts everything? Even if half the industry thinks I've lost my mind? Especially then, Dana said, the things worth doing are usually the things that cost the most. They drove back to Seattle in relative silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Monica watched the landscape blur past, forests and mountains and small towns, all the pieces of Washington state that would be affected if the Dignity and Hospitality Act passed. All the hotels that would have to change, all the people who would benefit, all the resistance that was already building. Her phone buzzed, a text from Governor Mitchell. You were magnificent. The bill is going to pass. And even if it doesn't, you've already changed the conversation. That matters. Monica texted back, thank you for believing this was possible. The governor's response came immediately. I believe because you showed me it was possible. You stood in that lobby and refused to leave. Everything else followed from that. Monica looked at those words for a long time. Refused to leave. Such a simple thing, such a small act of resistance. But from that single refusal had come terminations and audits and legislation and national attention and industry-wide reform conversations. From one woman saying, no, I belong here, had come the possibility that everyone might belong everywhere. When they got back to the hotel, Monica didn't go to the penthouse. She went to the lobby, the same lobby where this had all started. It looked the same. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, elegant furniture. But it felt different, safer, more open, like a place that actually meant its promise of welcome. Marisol was at the front desk, training 2 new employees. She looked up when Monica walked in and smiled, tired, genuine, full of hope. Welcome home, Marisol said. Monica looked around at the lobby one more time, at the space that had tried to reject her and had instead become the catalyst for everything that followed. Thank you, she said. It's good to be home. That night, alone in the penthouse, Monica opened her laptop and started writing. Not a corporate statement or testimony or strategic plan. Just words, thoughts, the story of what had happened and what it meant and where it might lead. She wrote about Grant Hollis and Cal Turner and all the people who'd enabled discrimination because it was easier than fighting it. She wrote about Rachel Peterson and Marcus Williams and everyone who'd been hurt by a system that valued profit over people. She wrote about Marisol and James and Carmen and all the people who'd stayed and fought and hoped for something better. And she wrote about a lobby, just a lobby, in a hotel in Seattle. A space that should have been unremarkable, but instead became the place where someone finally said enough, where the pattern broke, where change became possible. She was still writing when the sun came up over Puget Sound, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose. A new day, a new chance, a new world slowly being built from the ruins of the old one. Monica saved the document and closed her laptop. She had a meeting at 9 with the audit team, another at 11 with new management candidates, a conference call at 2 with the American Hotel and Lodging Association about the national conference, a full day of building the future. She stood at the windows and watched the city wake up below her. Somewhere out there, people were checking into hotels. Some of them would be welcomed with dignity. Some of them would face the same discrimination that had been normalized for so long. But every day the balance was shifting. Every day, more hotels were being held accountable. Every day, more voices were demanding change. And it had all started because one woman refused to leave a lobby. Monica smiled and went to take a shower. She had work to do. The world wasn't going to change itself. 3 months after the legislative testimony, Monica stood in the same lobby where everything had started and barely recognized it. Not because the physical space had changed. The marble was still polished to a mirror shine. The chandeliers still cast their warm glow. The furniture still whispered expensive luxury. But something fundamental had shifted in the air itself. The lobby felt different because it was different. It had become what it was always supposed to be, a place where everyone actually belonged. She watched a family check in, a Somali mother with 3 children, all of them travel-worn and tired from what looked like a long journey. The front desk clerk, a young man named Tyler, who'd been promoted from housekeeping after Grant's termination, greeted them with genuine warmth. No second glances at their clothing, no questions about payment methods, no suspicious lingering, just welcome. Ms. Ahmed, we have you in a family suite on the 8th floor, Tyler said, handing over key cards. There's a complimentary breakfast from 6 to 10, and if your kids need anything, extra pillows, games, whatever, just call down. We're here to help. The mother's shoulders visibly relaxed. Thank you. We've been traveling for 2 days. This is the first place that's felt safe. Tyler smiled. That's what we're here for, safe and comfortable. Enjoy your stay. Monica felt her chest tighten with something that might have been pride or relief or just profound gratitude that this simple, ordinary interaction was now the standard instead of the exception. It's working, a voice said beside her. Monica turned to find Marisol, who'd been officially promoted to property manager 6 weeks ago after a competitive interview process that had attracted candidates from across the country. She'd earned the position on merit, on vision, on the kind of leadership that came from actually caring about people, instead of just managing them. It is, Monica agreed, but we're not done yet. We're never done, Marisol said with a slight smile. That's kind of the point, isn't it? This isn't a one-time fix, it's a commitment. They were interrupted by Janice, who appeared with her tablet and the expression that meant Monica's schedule was about to get even more complicated. The audit team final report just came in. Dana wants you to review it before the board presentation tomorrow. Also, CNN is asking for a follow-up interview about the Dignity and Hospitality Act passing the full Senate. They want to film here in the lobby. And you have that American Hotel and Lodging Association conference keynote in 3 days. The draft speech is ready for your review. Monica took a breath. Okay, let's start with the audit report. Conference room? Already set up. The audit report was 247 pages of uncomfortable truth. Monica sat at the conference table with Dana, Patricia, and the lead auditor, a woman named Dr. Simone Laurent, who'd spent 20 years investigating discrimination cases for the Department of Justice and had the kind of unflinching honesty that made people either love her or avoid her entirely. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, Dr. Laurent began. What we found was worse than your preliminary findings suggested. The pattern of discrimination wasn't limited to Seattle. It was systemic across all 12 properties, different manifestations, different managers, but the same underlying culture that normalized exclusion and punished people who tried to stop it. She pulled up a summary chart. 163 complaints over 7 years, 89 that you'd already identified, plus 74 more we uncovered through interviews with former employees and guests who never filed formal reports. Of those 163, exactly 9 resulted in any meaningful disciplinary action. 9 out of 163. Monica felt sick. She'd known it was bad. But seeing the numbers laid out so starkly was different than knowing abstractly. The good news, Dr. Laurent continued, is that the reforms you implemented are already showing measurable impact. Staff surveys show a 78% improvement in perceptions of management accountability. Guest complaint rates are down 42%. And of the complaints that are being filed, 96% are now being resolved within the 48-hour mandate you established. Patricia leaned forward. What about the terminated managers? Any legal challenges? 3 lawsuits filed, Dana said. 2 have already been dismissed. The third is Cal Turner's, and based on the evidence we have, I expect it to be dismissed within the month. His lawyer is basically arguing that following discriminatory practices he'd been doing for years shouldn't count as grounds for termination because nobody stopped him before. It's not a winning argument. What's the financial impact been? Monica asked. Patricia pulled up a different report. Total reform costs to date, $11.3 million. That includes audit fees, legal costs, training development, temporary consultants, and new systems implementation. We're under budget and ahead of schedule on most deliverables. And the business impact? Patricia's expression shifted into something that might have been satisfaction. That's the really interesting part. Despite the disruption, despite the negative media attention from industry critics, despite the mass terminations, we're actually performing better than last year. Revenue is up 14% across all properties. Occupancy rates are up 9%. Employee retention has improved by 63%, and we're seeing a significant shift in our customer demographics toward younger, more diverse guests who specifically choose us because of the reforms. Monica let that sink in. We're making more money by doing the right thing. Substantially more, Patricia confirmed. Turns out a lot of people have been avoiding luxury hotels because they didn't feel welcome. We're capturing that market. Plus, we're getting corporate clients who want to align with companies that share their values. The Seattle property alone has booked 8 major conferences in the next 18 months, specifically because of our reputation for inclusive practices. Dr. Laurent closed her laptop. Miss Lane, I've audited dozens of companies over the years. Most of them do the bare minimum to avoid legal liability and then go back to business as usual. What you've done here is extraordinary. You didn't just address the specific incidents, you rebuilt the entire culture. You created accountability structures with teeth. You promoted people who'd been held back by the old system. You spent millions of dollars, not because you had to, but because it was right. In my professional opinion, Lane Hospitality Group is now the gold standard for what ethical hospitality reform looks like. But, Monica asked, because there was clearly a but coming. But sustainability depends on vigilance, Dr. Laurent said. Cultures can revert. New managers can bring old biases. Systems can erode if they're not maintained. The reforms you've implemented are excellent. Keeping them excellent will require constant attention and willingness to course correct when problems emerge. This isn't a problem you solve once. It's a commitment you make every single day. Monica nodded slowly. I understand, and I'm committed. We all are. The meeting continued for another hour, reviewing specific recommendations, discussing ongoing monitoring protocols, planning for the transition from active reform to sustainable maintenance. When it finally ended, Monica felt exhausted but also strangely energized. They'd done something real, something measurable, something that mattered. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Lane, this is Marcus Williams, the man who sent you the book. My wife and I are in Seattle for our anniversary, doing it right this time. We're staying at your hotel tonight. Just wanted you to know that when we walked into that lobby, nobody questioned us. Nobody made us feel like we didn't belong. For the first time in a luxury hotel, we felt welcome. Thank you for making that possible. Monica stared at the message for a long moment. Then she forwarded it to Marisol with a note. This is why we do it. Can you make sure the Williams family gets an upgrade and a bottle of champagne in their room? No charge. Just welcome. Marisol's response came immediately. Already done. I saw their reservation this morning and remembered the name from the complaint files. They're in the executive suite. Champagne is waiting. And I left them a personal note thanking them for giving us another chance. Monica smiled and headed to the penthouse to review the keynote speech for the American Hotel and Lodging Association conference. It was the biggest speech of her career, 3,000 hospitality industry leaders, live streamed to thousands more, the kind of platform that could either establish her as a transformative leader or expose her as someone who'd gotten lucky with one viral moment. The draft speech Janice had prepared was good, professional, safe. It hit all the right notes about reform and accountability and building better systems. But as Monica read through it, she realized it was missing something essential, truth. The raw, uncomfortable truth about what this had actually cost and why it was worth it. She deleted the entire document and started over. 3 days later, Monica stood backstage at the conference center in Chicago, waiting to be introduced to an audience that was mostly skeptical and somewhat hostile. The American Hotel and Lodging Association had invited her to speak, but based on the chatter Janice had monitored on industry forums, a significant portion of the membership thought she was either naive or destructive, or both. The moderator, a veteran hotelier named Douglas Chen, who'd built a chain of boutique properties across Asia, was finishing her introduction. Our keynote speaker today needs no introduction. You've seen the videos, you've read the headlines. You've probably had strong opinions about what she's doing, but before you judge, I encourage you to listen. Monica Lane is either leading us toward the future of hospitality or driving us off a cliff. Either way, she's forcing us to have conversations we've been avoiding for too long. Please welcome Monica Lane. The applause was polite and scattered. Monica walked onto the stage and looked out at 3,000 faces that represented 3,000 different versions of the industry she was trying to change. She saw skepticism, defensiveness, curiosity, and here and there, hope. She decided to start with the hard part. "I'm going to tell you something that most keynote speakers don't say," Monica began. "I don't have all the answers. 3 months ago, I was standing in a lobby being told I didn't belong there, and I had no idea that moment would lead to mass terminations and legislative reform and a complete restructuring of my company. I didn't plan to become the face of hospitality reform. I just refused to leave a lobby. Everything else followed from that single refusal." She paused, letting that settle. "Since then, I've learned a lot. I've learned that the problem isn't just bad managers, it's the systems that enable them. I've learned that reform is expensive and disruptive and deeply uncomfortable. I've learned that a lot of people in this industry would rather pretend discrimination doesn't exist than do the hard work of addressing it. And I've learned that change is possible, but only if we're willing to pay the actual cost." A man in the third row crossed his arms. Monica recognized him from industry publications. David Stromberg, CEO of a major hotel chain, vocal critic of the Dignity in Hospitality Act. "So let's talk about cost," Monica continued. "Lane Hospitality Group has spent $11.3 million on reform in 3 months. We've terminated 47 managers. We've disrupted operations across 12 properties. We've faced lawsuits and media criticism and industry pushback. By conventional business metrics, this should have been a disaster. But here's what actually happened. Our revenue is up 14%. Our occupancy rates are up 9%. Our employee retention has improved by 63%. We're capturing market share from competitors who haven't made these changes. We're attracting corporate clients who want to work with ethical companies. We're building a sustainable competitive advantage by doing the right thing." That got people's attention. A few skeptical expressions shifted into interest. "But here's the more important truth," Monica said. "Even if the numbers hadn't improved, even if reform had cost us money instead of making us money, it would still have been the right thing to do. Because hospitality isn't just about profit. It's about the promise we make to every person who walks through our doors. You are welcome here. You are safe here. You belong here. And if we can't keep that promise to everyone, then we're not in the hospitality business. We're just running expensive real estate that happens to have beds." Someone in the audience started clapping. Then others joined. Not everyone, maybe a third of the room, but enough to shift the energy. Monica kept going. "I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking my situation was unique. I owned the company, so I could afford to make radical changes. You're thinking your shareholders or your board or your investors would never approve spending millions on reform. You're thinking the Dignity and Hospitality Act is government overreach that will hurt your business. You're thinking I'm either idealistic or reckless, and probably both." David Stromberg was nodding along, clearly agreeing with every word. "And you might be right," Monica admitted. "Maybe I am idealistic. Maybe I got lucky. Maybe the reforms that worked for Lane Hospitality Group won't work for everyone. But I'm asking you to consider another possibility. That the reason reform seems impossible is because we've spent decades building systems that make discrimination easy and accountability hard. That we've normalized practices that should horrify us. That we've convinced ourselves that treating everyone with dignity is somehow incompatible with running a successful business." She pulled up a slide showing complaint data aggregated from multiple sources. Industry-wide research suggests that for every formal discrimination complaint filed at a hotel, there are 7 to 10 incidents that go unreported. If we apply that multiplier to the documented complaints across the industry, we're looking at tens of thousands of people every year who are made to feel unwelcome in hotels that advertise themselves as welcoming. Tens of thousands of people who take their business elsewhere. Tens of thousands of potential customers we're losing because we can't figure out how to treat them with basic dignity. Another slide showed demographic projections. The United States is becoming more diverse. Younger generations care deeply about corporate ethics and social responsibility. International travel is increasing from countries and cultures we've historically underserved. The market is shifting toward inclusion whether we like it or not. We can either adapt proactively and capture that market, or we can cling to outdated practices and watch our customer base shrink. A woman near the front raised her hand. Monica nodded. "Miss Lane, I run a small independent hotel. 30 rooms. I can't afford to spend millions on reform. How am I supposed to implement these kinds of changes? Monica smiled. That's an excellent question, and it's exactly why the Dignity and Hospitality Act has scaled requirements. Small properties under 50 rooms are exempt from the audit mandates. But here's what you can do that costs almost nothing. Review your complaint process. Make sure people can actually report problems without fear of retaliation. Train your staff on implicit bias. There are free resources available online. Examine your own practices honestly and ask whether everyone would feel equally welcome. The most important changes aren't about money. They're about attention and intention. Another hand went up. An older man, probably in his 70s. I've been in this business for 50 years. We've always had standards for who fits the profile of our clientele. Are you saying that's wrong? Monica chose her words carefully. I'm saying that if your standards exclude people based on how they look rather than how they behave, then yes, that's wrong. If someone has a reservation, a valid credit card, and isn't disrupting other guests, they belong in your hotel. Period. Deciding someone doesn't fit the profile based on their race or clothing or appearance isn't maintaining standards. It's discrimination. The man looked uncomfortable but nodded slowly. David Stromberg finally stood up. Ms. Lane, you keep talking about dignity and ethics like they're revolutionary concepts, but hospitality has always been about service. We serve customers. We maintain brand standards. We create experiences that justify premium pricing. What you're describing sounds more like social work than hospitality business. Monica looked at him directly. Mr. Stromberg, when was the last time you were refused service somewhere because of how you look? He blinked. That's not relevant. It's absolutely relevant. You've never experienced it because you fit the profile that most luxury establishments expect. You look like you belong, so nobody questions it. But millions of people don't have that experience. They walk into hotels wondering if they'll be welcomed or challenged, if they'll be served or suspected, if they'll be treated like valued guests or potential threats. That anxiety, that fundamental uncertainty about whether you belong, is what we're trying to eliminate. And yes, that is hospitality business, because hospitality means everyone feels at home. Stromberg sat down, looking distinctly unhappy. Monica took a breath. Look, I know change is hard. I know it's expensive and disruptive and uncomfortable. I know it's easier to keep doing things the way we've always done them, but I'm standing here telling you that the way we've always done them is broken. It's broken for the people who get discriminated against. It's broken for the employees who try to stop it and get punished. And increasingly, it's broken for business because we're losing customers and talent and reputation by clinging to practices that should have ended decades ago. She clicked to her final slide, a photo of the Horizon Grand Lobby on the night everything changed. Monica standing at the desk, calm and steady, while chaos erupted around her. This moment went viral because people recognized it, because they'd experienced it, or witnessed it, or feared it, because it represented something that happens every single day in hotels across this country. And when people saw that moment, they had a choice about how to respond. Some chose outrage, some chose denial, some chose to demand change. I chose to use whatever power I had to make sure it didn't keep happening. She looked out at the audience, making eye contact with as many people as she could. So here's my challenge to you. What will you choose? When you go back to your hotels and your teams and your boardrooms, what will you choose to do with the power you have? Will you keep protecting the systems that make discrimination easy? Will you keep dismissing complaints and silencing whistleblowers and pretending everything is fine? Or will you choose to build something better, to create hotels where everyone actually belongs, to prove that hospitality can be both profitable and ethical? The room was completely silent. I don't know if the changes I've made will transform the industry, Monica continued. I don't know if everyone will follow this model. I don't even know if Lane Hospitality Group will sustain these reforms over the long term. Cultures can revert, vigilance can slip, new problems can emerge. But I do know this. I will never again watch someone be treated the way I was treated in that lobby and do nothing. I will never again prioritize comfort over justice. I will never again accept discrimination as the cost of doing business. She paused one final time. The hospitality industry can be what it claims to be. We can actually welcome everyone. We can actually create spaces where dignity is guaranteed, not conditional. We can actually mean it when we say everyone belongs here, but only if we choose to, only if we're willing to pay the cost, only if we refuse to leave the lobby until things change. Monica stepped back from the podium. For a moment, nothing happened. Then someone in the back stood up and started clapping. Then others, then more. Within seconds, half the audience was on their feet. Not everyone. Stromberg and his allies stayed firmly seated, but enough, more than enough. Monica walked off stage to a reception area where Janice was waiting with tears streaming down her face. "That was perfect," her assistant said. "That was absolutely perfect." Monica hugged her. It was true. That's all it needed to be. Over the next hour, she did interviews with industry publications, met with hotel executives who wanted to discuss implementing similar reforms, and fielded questions from people who'd been moved by the speech. But the conversation that mattered most came from an unexpected source. David Stromberg approached her during a break, looking distinctly uncomfortable. "Ms. Lane, can we talk privately?" Monica nodded and followed him to a quiet corner. Stromberg cleared his throat. "I was resistant to your message up there. I still think some of your methods were extreme, but I need to tell you something. My daughter is Black. She was adopted, and last year she was refused service at one of my own hotels because the front desk didn't believe she could afford to stay there. She didn't tell me until she saw your video. She said she didn't want to burden me with it, that it would just cause problems." His voice cracked slightly. "My own hotel discriminated against my daughter, and I didn't know because I'd created a culture where she couldn't tell me. Where employees were more concerned about maintaining standards than treating people with dignity. So I owe you an apology, and I owe you a thank you, because you're forcing conversations that I should have been having all along." Monica felt her own eyes welling up. "Mr. Stromberg, is your daughter here?" He shook his head. "She's in college, but I'm going to call her tonight and tell her things are going to change, that I'm going to change, and I'm going to ask for her help auditing our properties because she knows what discrimination looks like in ways I never will." "That's exactly right," Monica said quietly. "The people who've experienced the problem are the ones who know how to fix it." They talked for 20 more minutes about practical implementation, lessons learned, mistakes to avoid. When they parted, Stromberg was already making notes on his phone about reforms to implement. Monica flew back to Seattle that night, exhausted and hopeful and still processing everything that had happened. When she arrived at the hotel at midnight, Marisol was waiting in the lobby with a laptop. "You need to see this," her property manager said. She pulled up a news article from that evening. The headline read, "Washington Governor Signs Dignity and Hospitality Act into Law." Monica read the first paragraph through tears. The bill had passed the full legislature with bipartisan support. It would take effect in 6 months. Washington state had just become the first state in the nation to mandate independent complaint systems, bias training, and civil rights audits for hotels. "It's real," Monica whispered. "It's actually happening." "It is," Marisol confirmed. "And Monica, there's something else. 12 other states have announced they're considering similar legislation. California, New York, Oregon, Illinois. This is going national." Monica sat down heavily in one of the lobby chairs, the same lobby where she'd refused to leave, where security had been called, where everything had changed. She looked around at the space that had become ground zero for a movement she'd never intended to start. "Do you think it'll work?" she asked Marisol. "Really work? Long term?" Marisol sat beside her. "I think it'll work as long as we keep working at it. As long as we remember that this isn't about one law or one company or one viral moment. It's about choosing dignity every single day, in every interaction, with every guest and every employee. That's what makes it sustainable." They sat together in the quiet lobby, two women who'd been part of transforming a space from one that excluded people to one that welcomed them, from one that protected discrimination to one that demanded accountability. Monica's phone buzzed. A text from Rachel Peterson. "Just saw the news about the bill. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for proving that speaking up matters. I'm back in hospitality now, working at a hotel in Portland, using everything I learned from watching you to make this place better." Another text, this time from Marcus Williams. "My daughter asked me tonight why I used to tell her to be careful in nice hotels. I got to tell her she doesn't have to be careful anymore, that the world is changing, that people like you are making it safer for people like us. Thank you." More texts came in. From former employees, from guests, from people she'd never met who'd been following the story. From advocates and activists and ordinary people who'd experienced discrimination and finally felt like someone was listening. Monica read them all, every single one, and she thought about the path that had led here, about Grant Hollis's face when he told her to leave, about Cal Turner's desperate attempts to justify his failures, about the 47 people who'd lost their jobs and the hundreds who'd been hurt by their actions, about the cost of change and the cost of staying the same, about the choice to refuse. 1 week later, the Horizon Grand Hotel held a ceremony to unveil a plaque in the lobby. Monica had resisted the idea at first. It felt too self-congratulatory, too much like declaring victory when the work was far from over. But Marisol had convinced her that it mattered, that marking the moment mattered, that giving people something concrete to remember mattered. The plaque was simple bronze, mounted near the front desk where anyone checking in would see it. The inscription read, "On this spot, one person refused to leave when told she didn't belong." From that refusal came accountability, reform, and the commitment that these doors are open to everyone. No exceptions, no excuses, no conditions. Everyone belongs. Everyone is welcome. Everyone matters. The ceremony was small, just hotel staff, a few local reporters, some of the people who'd been part of the journey. Marcus Williams and his family had driven up from Portland. Rachel Peterson had flown in from Oregon. The grandmother who'd checked in with her granddaughter stood near the front, the little girl holding her hand. Governor Mitchell said a few words about the law and what it represented. Marisol spoke about the daily work of maintaining culture. A civil rights advocate talked about the broader movement toward inclusive hospitality. Then Monica stepped to the podium. 3 months ago, she began, I walked into this lobby and was told I didn't belong. Someone looked at me and decided, based on nothing but assumptions and bias, that I couldn't possibly afford to stay here, that I was suspicious, that I was a problem to be removed rather than a person to be welcomed. She looked at the plaque. That person was wrong, but he didn't become wrong the moment I revealed I owned the building. He was wrong from the moment he made that assumption. Because the right to be treated with dignity doesn't depend on who you are or what you own or how much power you have. It's not something people earn, it's something everyone deserves. She paused, looking out at the assembled faces. We've done a lot of work in 3 months. We've terminated people who enabled discrimination. We've implemented new systems and training and accountability measures. We've spent millions of dollars and countless hours rebuilding this company's culture. And we've seen real results, better numbers, happier employees, more diverse guests, recognition from the industry. All of that matters. But it only matters if we understand that this isn't finished. This will never be finished. Every single day, we have to choose to keep these doors open to everyone. Every single interaction, we have to choose dignity over convenience. Every single moment, we have to choose to be what we say we are. Monica stepped closer to the plaque. This marker isn't here to celebrate me. It's here to remind us, everyone who works here, everyone who stays here, everyone who walks through these doors, what's possible when someone refuses to accept discrimination as normal. When someone says, no, this is wrong, and I won't be quiet about it. When someone chooses to stand in a lobby and demand change until change happens. She looked directly at the little girl holding her grandmother's hand. It's here, so that children like you grow up in a world where you never have to question whether you belong in nice places, where you never have to worry about being treated differently because of how you look, where you can walk into any hotel, any restaurant, any space, and know with absolute certainty that you are welcome. The room was very quiet. That's the world we're building, Monica continued, not just in this lobby, not just in Washington State, but everywhere, one hotel at a time, one policy at a time, one choice at a time. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take guests speaking up when they see discrimination. It's going to take employees refusing to participate in unfair practices. It's going to take managers choosing accountability over convenience. It's going to take executives prioritizing ethics over easy profits. It's going to take all of us choosing, every single day, to keep these doors open to everyone. She placed her hand on the plaque. So this is my promise, and I hope it becomes our collective promise. These doors will stay open. Not because a law requires it, though that helps. Not because it's good for business, though it is, but because it's right. Because everyone deserves to be welcomed. Because everyone belongs. Because dignity is not negotiable. Monica stepped back. The room burst into applause. Later, after the ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed, Monica found herself alone in the lobby once more. She stood in the exact spot where she'd stood 3 months ago, where Grant Hollis had told her to leave, where everything had changed. The lobby looked the same as it had that night. Same marble, same chandeliers, same elegant architecture. But the space felt completely different. It felt like what it was supposed to be, a threshold, a beginning, a place where people crossed from outside to inside and knew they were welcome. Her phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "Miss Lane, you don't know me, but I'm a black woman who travels for work. I've been refused service, questioned, followed, and humiliated in more hotels than I can count. I just checked into your Seattle property. The staff greeted me by name. They upgraded my room without asking. They made me feel like they were genuinely happy I was there. For the first time in my career, I felt welcome in a luxury hotel. Thank you for making that possible. Thank you for refusing to leave that lobby." Monica read the message 3 times. Then she looked up at the plaque on the wall, at the promise made permanent in bronze. Everyone belongs. Everyone is welcome. Everyone matters. It had started with one woman refusing to leave one lobby. But it had become something much bigger than that. It had become a movement, a standard, a new way of understanding what hospitality actually meant. And it was just the beginning. Monica walked toward the elevator, ready to go to the penthouse, ready to rest. But before she pressed the button, she turned back one more time to look at the lobby, at the space that had tried to reject her and instead had become the birthplace of change. "Thank you," she whispered to no one in particular. To everyone who'd fought alongside her, to everyone who'd believed change was possible, to everyone who'd refused to accept that the way things were was the way things had to be. The lobby didn't answer. It just stood there, doors open, lights bright, silently keeping its promise to welcome everyone who walked through. And that, Monica thought as she finally stepped into the elevator, was exactly enough. The world had changed because someone refused to leave a lobby. And it would keep changing as long as people kept refusing to accept discrimination as normal. The doors closed. The elevator rose. And in the lobby below, the promise remained, permanent and clear. Everyone belongs. Everyone is welcome. Everyone matters. No exceptions.